There's something behind you.
I'm going to talk about Paranormal Activity, the Ghost Dimension, and I think this is the 6th and supposedly final installment. I don't see how it's the final installment because there are like dozens of loose ends at the end of this movie. And I think if it is the last one, I can definitively say that this is the worst horror movie franchise to get theatrical releases. Like, if you count straight to DVD or home video or whatever, it's a whole different ballpark, because you get all of these very low budget, no effort horror movies that somehow keep on getting sequels. But in terms of theatrical releases, I do think the Paranormal Activity franchise is the worst. And the reason for that, the reason that the Ghost Dimension is not good is for the same reason all the other ones aren't very good. They're not scary at all. The characters are flat. I dare you to name any character in this franchise other than Katie and Mika from the first movie. I dare you to name any characters from this franchise. And when you get on top of everything, the 3D in this movie, because this movie has a pretty interesting conceit where this family move into this house. It's 2013, they move into this house and they find a box from 1988 containing old videotapes and a specially modified camera, which is in 3D. Whenever the perspective switches to this camera, the 3D in the movie starts. And basically, they go around the house, and if they walk into a strange area of the house, it sounds like you're underwater, and they have this weird filter on top, a 3D filter. It's an interesting idea, but when you have found footage motion, and shaky cam and everything, you're gonna have a bad time. I was in a screening with about 30 or 40 people watching this movie. 10 people at least had to leave because they were so ill with the motion sickness. This movie was literally making people ill because shaky cam and 3D do not friggin' mix, and the fact that they thought this was a good idea absolutely baffles me. And
I saw a trailer for it where they had characters popping out of the 16:9 aspect ratio, so people actually reaching out from the black bars.
Yeah. And
I was like, well, they're really stretching for some kind of gimmick, aren't they?
Well, the thing is, this is a camera that was meant to be from 1988, and it has not only does it have,
that was a problem with Paranormal Activity 3 as well.
It's like, not only does it have 3D technology, but it's a 16:9 aspect ratio. At least commit to it. After I saw this film, I immediately went to see The Last Witch Hunter, but when I was getting my ticket, I just had to ask the staff members, because I'm on good speaking terms with them, because I'm there all the freaking time. And I said, loads of people left my screening because they were ill, as that happened often. And it was the opening day, it was Friday, and they had 6 or 7 screenings that day. And the staff member said, without fail, we have had people leave the screenings because they're getting ill. I do not get motion sickness from 3D. The only reason I try to avoid 3D films is because it just mutes the colours. It just makes everything really dim. So motion sickness...
don't ever watch Avengers in 3D.
Do not watch Thor in 3D, because that is just a waste of gorgeous colours.
Do not watch Thor in... Yeah.
That's the Marvel film that I saw in 3D and just thought, nope, these films are too colourful, avoid it.
That made me want my money back, Thor in 3D. That's the first time I officially went, nope, I don't like 3D.
It's not even a bad conversion, it's just you lose all of the wonderful Asgardian colours and just looking into Chris Hemsworth's crystal blue eyes. You lose that effect. Where was I? And now I'm just thinking of Chris Hemsworth and hugging him a lot. But for the Ghost, because it makes people ill literally watching it, which is just a terrible, terrible, terrible idea. But I understand people liking the first few movies, even though there's just a complete lack of activity. It's like paranormal inactivity, if anything. Because the ghosts do absolutely nothing until the last 10 minutes, and then once it's revealed what they want to do, it's like, why didn't you do that immediately? Why have you spent 90 minutes teasing these people instead of doing what you've set out to do? And this I hate this franchise. It takes away from what made this franchise popular in the first place. Even though there's nothing of substance going on in the first 3 or 4 movies, they show, in this 3D camera, they show what the ghosts look like and what these demons look like, except sometimes you see a ghost and then sometimes it's still affecting stuff. It's like, what are the rules? Can this camera see them or can't it? And the ghost in question is basically like the black smoke monster from Lost, except it has tendrils and stuff. It looks terrible. Clearly the budget was not there for this terribly CGI'd ghost. And the final 10 minutes go so off the wall that it's like this franchise revelled in subtlety at the beginning, almost to its detriment in my opinion, but even like this just goes way too far at the end and really detracts it. It becomes more like a fairground ride, which I could sort of accept if it wasn't a Paranormal Activity film. But even though like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street did have those cheesy 3D installments of the franchise, there was a transition from the first serious one to the sort of jokey, schlocky kills to the 3D, whereas this one's just gone, oh, we want you to be taken very, very seriously, but we also want gimmicky 3D effects. 90% of the scares are fake outs. That's probably an accurate ratio. One of the first scares in the movie is I say scares in massive quotation marks because I didn't jump once in this movie. The audience were bored in my screening. They were looking at their phones constantly. The first scare in the movie is this guy going around the house in the dark, and then from a dark corridor comes a baseball, which has been aimed at him by another person. It's not even a supernatural occurrence, it's a complete fake out, and it's lazy as shit. But if there were 3 words that could describe this franchise, those are the ones I would pick. And like I said, 90% of the scares are fake outs, and all of the jump scares are predictable. You can practically count down to the second when a jump is about to occur. You know, Red Letter Media ages ago did a thing where they watched all of the Transformers movies at the same time.
Yes.
And many of the action beats occurred at the same time in those movies. If you watched all 6 Paranormal Activity movies at the exact same time, I'm willing to bet money that they would follow the exact same format, and all of the jump scares would occur at the exact same time.
Well, all the main scares occur at the end.
Basically, and when it's at the end, it becomes so ridiculously unintentionally funny. Like, the scariest moment in this entire franchise has come from the first movie where Katie gets dragged out of the bed. And we don't see... It's an unseen force that just grabs her and drags her out of the room. Ghost Dimension ends with something similar, where one of the characters gets dragged out of the room, but we actually see what's dragging them. And it's just a great big black CGI mess of tendrils. And it just looks really, really dumb. And... like I said, because the 3D is so poorly done, because the motion sickness alone will probably deter so many audience members. I'm surprised that I'm not hearing news stories about this. Like, because news stories of people saying, "Oh, people can't watch the movie because they're being sick." Because I remember when Cloverfield came out, that was a big news story that people couldn't watch because of motion sickness. And I never get motion sickness at these films, but even I was feeling like I was getting headaches 10 minutes in. So this is coming from a hardened person, so to speak. And I'm surprised people aren't talking about this more, but I can't say watch this in 2D either, because because the camera trickery that they do with this 3D camera, it needs the 3D. You need those jump out things, otherwise it will just look stupid. It's like when you watch a 1960s or 70s or 80s 3D movie and they really pander to the 3D. Like, what's that scene for? Is it House of Wax? When the guy's got the ball on a paddle on a string and he's batting it to the audience. And that scene only exists for the 3D, so the ball
3D!
But and there's so many moments like that I can't imagine this 2D film looking any good.
You get that a lot in movies that were kind of around during the big 3D period. Like, Spy Kids 3D exists only for that reason.
Yeah, but imagine watching Spy Kids 3D in 2D. Like,
what's funny is that I checked out Beowulf quite recently. I never actually saw it when it came out, even though everyone wouldn't shut up about it.
Yeah.
But I saw it, what must have been 1 or 2 years ago, and my dad and I just happened to be watching TV and it was on, so we gave it a watch. I quite enjoyed it, but but we kept getting those occasional shots where something flies towards the camera, and every single time we'd go 3D.
Yeah.
And it's really obvious.
Like, it is like that in the Ghost Dimension, but probably even more, because it is specifically tailored to 3D. I don't even think it was filmed in 3D, but it is specifically tailored to that. So if you watch it in 2D, you have a stupid looking movie. If you watch it in 3D, you're gonna get ill. There's no winning with this movie. You're gonna have a bad time no matter what you do in terms of watching it.